Hi guys, Richard Sharp, the chairman of the BBC, has resigned over pressure that was applied to him following his help to organise a loan for Boris Johnson. He should never have been chair of the corporation, but when it comes to resignations, it should have happened when it was discovered the level of corruption that exists between him, the Tory party, and Boris Johnson in particular. So he will be replaced, but it can't be business as usual, which is a very valid point raised by SNP MP John Nicholson when he spoke to James O'Brien following the news.
The case, John Nicholson, that Labour governments or SNP governments don't also seek to put sympathetic people into positions of prominence. But the Richard Sharp appointment felt different, if not from the start, then certainly from the point that the Sunday Times reported his involvement in this still unbelievable loan facility. Is that a fair comment?
Well, first of all, you're right about Labour, of course, because Labour has put public service.
Right, the SNP can't put anyone in charge of the BBC.
Can you think, out of interest, can you think of a single time that the SNP has ever appointed a donor to a prime public service job?
I lack the nous to know what the prime public service jobs in Scotland would be, but maybe the National Gallery or something like that.
Well, I can't.
Okay,
I can't.
Fair comment.
And somebody said that to me in The Spectator recently, and I wrote back and said, if you can name one, please tell me, and they couldn't. But to the substance of your question, James, you're absolutely right. I think it's entirely wrong that big party donors, like Richard Sharp, who'd given £600,000 to the Tory party, should then be rewarded with prime public service jobs. Now, Richard Sharp previously applied for a job at the BBC. He wasn't even shortlisted. To borrow from Mrs. Merton, what was the difference, do you think, between the first time he applied, when he wasn't even shortlisted, and the post-£600,000 donation, when not only was he interviewed, but he got this big job from Boris Johnson? I think we know the answer to that question. Well, so I very much like, as we take this forward, and I raised this in the House of Commons yesterday, I asked the Culture Secretary to promise that whoever succeeds Richard Sharp, because I thought he'd go, would not have given a big bung to the Conservative Party. She refused to make that promise.
Of course she did, because the party is all about, give us money and we'll give you a job. Give us money or we'll give you a PPE contract. Give us money or we'll give you something else in return. And there are two main issues here. First of all, is the level of corruption here. This guy helped Boris Johnson get an £800,000 loan, and Boris Johnson gave him a job in return. This is corruption. And what was this guy doing as head of the BBC? Why did he want to be chair of the BBC? Is it to push a narrative, a pro-Tory narrative, a pro-Brexit narrative? When people like Gary Lineker came out and criticised the Conservative government, he was slapped down over this. It's not so much about what Gary Lineker was saying, it's about criticism of the people that this guy was donating to, the ones that gave him his job. So don't criticise the party I'm donating to and have given me this job, Gary Lineker. If you do that, then you're going to suffer some sort of consequences. But also the point, that there is the media, the right-wing media, who say, well, everyone's corrupt. Like the Labour Party are corrupt, the SNP are corrupt, the Tories are corrupt. So, just avoid talking about corruption because it's everywhere. And John Nicholson was completely correct here, that, you can look for corruption in the SNP and you're not going to find it. There are issues, but it's nothing like what's happening in Westminster. And I'm really concerned that even today you had interviews with BBC on the BBC with Labour MPs who were defending donations to the Labour Party. So, corporations, big companies donate to political parties to get something in return generally. Not always the case, but in most cases, they give money to a politician to get something back. Maybe a change in legislation. It could be a piece of legislation for them. It could be the change of a tax law or something like that. Or it could be to to get somebody into government, into a position of power where they can make decisions on behalf of that company or corporation. This is extremely serious. Now, when we talk about the BBC, people will think this is where it ends. No, it's everywhere, and it needs to be cracked down on. And it's important that the next government try to clean house. But I'm concerned that political parties are so indebted, in a sense, to their donors that this type of corruption is difficult to avoid. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.